Am I the a-hole for telling my dad I judge his actions more harshly now that I'm a widowed parent too? I, 26 male, lost my wife, Annie, over a year ago when our 2 children were only 18 months and 4 years old. She was only 25. I lost my own mom when I was 5, so I have been where my children are, and my heart aches for them as well as for myself and for Annie, who so desperately wanted to be here for our kids. She lost her own dad when she was 6, so the reality of history repeating hit her incredibly hard before the end. I vowed to her, to myself, and to our children that I would not make the same mistakes my dad and her mom made in the aftermath. I'm mostly estranged from my dad, but after Annie died, he reached out to tell me he hoped I understood him better and cut him some slack for everything. I didn't respond to him at the time because I was in the most immediate sense of grief still. Today it's still raw, but I'm in therapy to try and find peace in my life. He reached out to me a few more times, and he apologized for his initial message. We met up a few days ago per his request. Once he realized I still wear my wedding ring, and once he realized I was still grieving, he tried telling me I needed to move on and start looking for love again. This led to tension in the meeting, and I told him to drop it or else, which is when he started saying he would hope I would see why he remarried so fast after my mom died, and why he was so happy with his second wife, and why he felt I needed a mother like he was so sure I felt my kids needed, saying I hated him for being happier and loving his second wife more, but I should understand better now. I should understand that life has to move on, and wanting to embrace a new person fully is not a bad thing. I'm a widowed parent, and that should have opened my eyes and made me regret hating him for so long. I told him it didn't work that way, that it only made me judge his actions more harshly. He was stunned to hear this. He asked me how I was ever going to find someone else to love me and the kids if I'm hung up on Annie, and I told him Annie was the love of my life. I told him my children are the other 2 loves of my life, but in a different way to Annie. It's my job to give them safety, security, love, and the best life I can make happen. I told him I would never look my young children in the eye and tell them their mother is dead and they need to get over it and accept a new mother. I will never yell at my children for crying for their mother because it makes the new spouse unhappy. I told him I'm not looking to give them a new mother. I'm looking to give them the best version of the dad they have and the best out of the shitty life we have been given. I told him I will never rub it in their faces the way he did to me that I love someone else way more than I ever loved their mom. I told him I understand grieving and needing to focus on yourself, but not hurting your children by trying to erase the parent they love. He called me an a-hole and I left, and I wondered since if I was too harsh. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole. Your father's remarriage and subsequent treatment of you were hurtful, and his recent comments about you moving on and finding love again were insensitive. It's natural for people to grieve and heal at their own pace, and no one should dictate how or when you should move on from your loss. Your dedication to providing a loving and supportive environment for your children is admirable, especially considering the challenges you've faced. Prioritizing their emotional needs and preserving the memory of their mother is crucial for their well-being and emotional growth. While your words may have been harsh, they came from a place of deep pain and frustration. You have every right to stand up for yourself and your children. Your commitment to your family and to Annie's memory is a testament to the depth of your love and compassion.
Not the a-hole. To be clear, your dad is a-hole for what he did in the last year. He should definitely have allowed you to grieve in your own way and decide on your own whether and when to allow for the possibility of another love. There's an old saying that women grieve, men replace. It obviously does not apply to you, but it does apply to your dad and many men of his generation and before. It may be that he never loved your mother as much as you love Annie. He's not an a-hole just because he married someone else, or even to love her more or be happier with her than he was with your mother. But he is certainly an a-hole for pointing it out to you and suggesting you do things the way he did. I was divorced, not widowed. My 2 older kids made it pretty clear they weren't interested in being part of a blended family once I eventually remarried. My youngest was all about it, for his own reasons. I think the important thing is to allow the kids to have whatever relationship they want to have with any eventual step-parents and not try to manufacture a Brady Bunch scenario. I'm sorry for your losses. Love your children and know you are enough.
Not the a-hole, especially after it seems he reached out to you mostly to say, "I told you so, now you'll see," and make your wife's death about himself rather than offering comfort to his grieving son. I'm so sorry for your and your children's loss.
Exactly what I came to say while you were grieving. He didn't reach out to say, "I've been there, I understand how hard this is, how can I support you?" He made it about himself, and what you need to do for him, while you were in no state to worry about anyone but you and your kids, and should never have been asked to be. Absolutely not the a-hole. I'm sorry for your loss.
Not the a-hole, mate, and you know it. You owe him nothing while you owe your children, as you said, the best version of yourself. Your father truly has some nerve to come over and tell you how to grieve. Rubbing in how he loves his new wife more than your mother, that's blatantly evil. My condolences for all the hardship you have had to endure.
Am I the a-hole for telling my son and daughter-in-law that it's not my fault their wedding was upstaged by my 50th birthday party? In my social circle, your 50th birthday is a huge deal. I haven't celebrated my birthday for a while. My last real birthday party was Sweet 16. Overall, I have been saving for this party for years, and all the family knows. My son and now daughter-in-law told me about a year ago that they were going to get married about a week after my birthday. I told them that it will happen after my 50th, and he has been to these parties before and they are a big deal. He literally got blasted at his aunt's 50th before. I told him I am also not going to tone it down, and he said he didn't care. My party has over 100 guests and had a lot of bells and whistles. My son's wedding was this weekend and both events got compared. It was basically what people were talking about. My son and daughter-in-law were cold to me during the wedding. I got a call from my son and it basically boiled down to I need to apologize for outshining their wedding. That people were calling his event cheap and overall seemed to prefer my event. I told him I am not apologizing, that I warned him months ago and he said he was fine with the party. That it is not my fault that it was upstaged by my party. They chose the date knowing how those parties are. This started an argument and they both told me I was a huge jerk.
Likely not the a-hole. Sounds like they had all the info to see this coming and assuming you were fully supportive and celebratory about the nuptials. Unless you're not telling us everything and your party was unexpectedly wedding-ish or oddly competitive in a way you would have anticipated and should have avoided.
It wasn't wedding-ish. I rented a really venue that has a private beach pools. Just a lot of drinking and fun. Think of a big pool party for adults.
Not the a-hole, but anyone who is trash talking your son's wedding are the a-hole. I'm turning 50 next year and, in my friend group, it's a huge milestone. We do parties, trips. We constantly talk about being able to join the Golden Girls squad. As we get older, we have few things to get excited for. 50th birthdays are a big deal. You have every right to celebrate it how and when you choose. Your son is not the a-hole for hosting his wedding near your birthday. Again, he and his finance have every right to celebrate where and how they choose. But who are these a-holes that are going to trash talk a wedding and make your son and his wife feel bad? Heck, they just had 2 events with free food and booze. They should just enjoy and appreciate you all thought highly enough of them to include them in both of these wonderful milestone celebrations.
Not the a-hole. It's not awesome that people in your lives were judging your birthday party against your son's wedding. That isn't okay. Your son and daughter-in-law are at a different point in their lives than you. You are turning 50. You have been planning financially for this party for a long time. Your son and daughter-in-law are starting out in their lives. Unless one or both sets of parents were covering the cost of the wedding where son and daughter-in-law are doing very well financially, this was always going to be a very different event than your party. Those are 2 very different places regarding what you can spend on the shiny and the glitz. That doesn't automatically make one party better than the other. And while it may have made more sense for your son and daughter-in-law to put off their wedding for a few months, at the end of the day, I can't say it speaks well of anyone who would compare the 2 very different events.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.